Here's our third video here. This is a good example of a question that you can try yourself. So here's a good place to pause it and try it, or at least write down what you need to write down before I start talking about it, which I'm going to do in 3 seconds. Okay, so for part A, here we want to know what is the height. That's the unknown thing there. So that means h is unknown, so we'll leave that as a variable. And then we want to know what is h 0.5 seconds later. So it's giving you the value of t there. That t is the number of seconds later. So this should be 20 minus 16 times 0.5 squared. And it would be some good practice to try to do this by hand or with a calculator. So doing it by hand, 0.5 squared is 0.25. That's also known as 1/4, and 1/4 of 16 is 4. So this comes out to be 20 minus 4 is 16. And that is, remember, h that we had here. H is equal to 16. That means that is the height. And for part B here, the question is asking how long the cat has. That's what we want to know. That means we want to know what is t equal to so that the cat reaches the ground. So how much time does it take until it reaches the ground? Well, when it reaches the ground, you know what its height above the ground is. It's 0 feet above the ground. So we can plug in h and see if we can solve it to find what t makes that work. So it's going to look like 0 equals 20 minus 16t squared. And we can solve this with extraction of roots. Try to get the t by itself on one side. I'll add 16t squared to both sides. That will give you 16t squared over here, and that cancels out on that side to give you 20. And to get the t by itself, let's divide both sides by 16, which would be t squared equals 20 over 16. You can reduce that to 5/4. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides, but remember that t squared equals a positive number here. This equation has two solutions. One solution is the positive square root of 5/4, and the other one is the opposite of that. And this is the exact solution. You can leave it like this. You could also simplify it a little bit, because when you have a square root of a fraction, you might remember that the square root of the top and the bottom can be done separately. So you can write this as t equals the plus or minus square root of 5, and then do the square root of 4 in the bottom, and the square root of 4 is 2. So you can write your solution like that. But it's actually, I'm not going to say that's the answer, because how many seconds is that exactly? This is exact, but it doesn't tell you exactly like what you want to know about the cat. So let's plug that into the calculator to do the square root of 5 divided by 2, and it's about 1.118 seconds. And actually, in this case, the negative number doesn't make sense. T is a number of seconds after it fell, so negative values of t would mean 1.118 seconds before it fell. And before it fell, the cat wasn't like jumping off the ground. It was just like sitting up in the tree. So the equation doesn't really apply before it fell. So we're just going to use the positive solution and say it will land after 1.118 seconds, about 1.2 seconds, you could say. And you could see this on a graph too, is a good thing to double check your answers if it's a test or something, or you have some extra time and you want to make sure. So here's a calculator, gonna graph it, and the window's not quite right. So if you know the cat started off at 20 feet above, maybe let's make that be the y max. We know the cat is never at negative heights, that would be below ground, so we don't need to see any negative values of y. And we know this all happens really fast, between like 0 and 2 seconds. So let's say the x-min is 0 and the x-max is 2. That way we'll get a better graph and we can see what's going on. And there it is. We can just double check if we hit trace and then maybe x is 0.5. We'll just check that. Yeah, that gives you a height of 16. There's a way to double check that. And then we could also go over here to see where is the x-intercept. And yeah, it looks like about 1.1. Y will be about 0.4 there, but it's unfortunate that it came out like that. But so yeah, it's just a way to get a little check of your answers. Now here's an example for you to do. Extracting roots is described here, but if you want to cancel out the 4, my first hint is to multiply both sides by 4, because 4 times this fraction will cancel that all out, and you'll have 40 on the other side. So that's my extra hint. And this is due along with the video notes, as usual.